With the season right around the corner, it's time to talk X factors that could take the Arizona Cardinals team to the next level in 2024. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner _ Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You know the drill, man. Every day, thanks for hanging out. If this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. Maybe make tomorrow your second. We're ramping up, man. This is going to be an incredibly fun, an incredibly exciting season with probably so many twists and turns that nobody could have ever seen coming. And hopefully more positive than negative ones. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So throughout the offseason, I'll do X Factor shows once in a while. And this is the last one I'll do before the season starts. And I think that even though there's a game coming up this weekend against Denver, we know the majority of what we're going to know about the high-impact players in 2024. Veterans, obviously, but it's more the rookie and second-year guys. And you'll notice that if you're watching on YouTube, and if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, and hit that subscribe button, man. You'll see 2 rookies and 1 second-year player as the X factors. And the reason for this is all of the question marks surrounding this team going into 2024, I predominantly surrounding rookies and second-year players. And while you say, sure, obviously because they haven't played as many snaps as veterans, we don't know as much about them. That's the natural dictionary definition of why. But the Cardinals roster is constructed as such that if 50% of the rookie and second-year guys take a step a year early, this is a playoff team. Or at least an in the hunt come week 15 and beyond playoff team. On the outskirts looking in, and not a 5-win team going into week 16 looking into 2025. So, we could talk about, what Marvin Harrison Jr.'s role is going to be, what Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Kyzir White. Well, I'll give you everything next week. But this show specifically highlights 3 players who, if they do take that leap in 2024, this team could surprise the hell out of a lot of people. And I always, could, might, future pacing, all that crap. I understand that they're words that people use to where they can have an out if it doesn't happen. You see it in national media all the time. Teams that could surprise. If they don't, it's not like, well, you told me they would, and you're wrong. Could, might, future pacing wins. You've heard me talk about with a lot of those terms in 2023 because this is it. That's culminated up to this week 1 Orchard Park Buffalo. So these 3 players are those that if they take that step forward earlier than expected or as expected for the first one I'm going to discuss, this team could be much better than people expect in 2024, including me. And the reason why these X factors are grouped together is because the team will be okay if they don't take that step. It's just going to be with a lot more fragility. This is going to be a completely different conversation. But all 3 of these players have a player who could take their spot if they don't amount to what people expect them to be, especially this first one in Paris Johnson Jr. So Paris Johnson Jr. moved to his traditional role as left tackle. Okay. As of now, we'll see if Evan Brown can really be that mainstay at left guard. We haven't seen him in the preseason. It's been Elijah Wilkinson. It's been Isaiah Adams. That's the weak spot of the offensive line. So when you have a weak left guard, it makes it more difficult on a left tackle to produce as a left tackle. Now, there are guys like Trent Williams and the like, David Bakhtiari. Like, there were guys throughout the league. I know David Bakhtiari doesn't have a team right now. I'm not sure if he exactly retired. This isn't Locked On Packers. But, like, there are guys who overcompensate for lack of talent at the guard position. Usually it's both the center and the left tackle's role to kind of mask that. And you're hoping that Evan Brown can step in and just be that guy. So Paris Johnson Jr. can just be that guy at left tackle. If Paris Johnson Jr. can emerge as an above average left tackle, he doesn't have to be all pro. He doesn't have to be all pro to warrant where the Cardinals drafted him. People forget quickly how bad many, if not most, offensive linemen are in this league. You've got a handful of all pros, you've got a handful of above average, and the rest are average and worse. Playing offensive line's hard, man. Pass rushers are wildly talented, way too fast for how much they weigh, and freakishly strong. So if Paris Johnson Jr. can anchor that left side of the offensive line, irrespective of talent from the left guard position, the Cardinals are going to be better on offense than people think they will be already. And while you say, oh, duh, not so fast. Say it doesn't work. Say Paris Johnson Jr. found his niche on the right side. A happy accident, Bob Ross would say. You've got Jonah Williams who can play left tackle who's done it. And just a guy. He's an average to slightly above average offensive lineman. And that's good enough. Kyler Murray can work with average. He can't work with what the left guard position was last year. He can't work with DJ Humphries, who you saw last year was the year where he was no longer DJ Humphries, and then obviously got hurt towards the end of the season. The X factor-ness of Paris Johnson Jr. is such that if he does emerge as a Pro Bowler at left tackle, this offense knows no bounds. That is real. This offense knows no bounds if they have their franchise left tackle for the next decade. He got some crap last year from fans, namely Pro Football Focus didn't like him. I've had, a bunch of buddies who were either a Pro Football Focus or moved on, the algorithm and the metrics for Pro Football Focus were not kind to Paris Johnson Jr. And, fans, a bunch of fans that I would have, interact with on Twitter, it was, well, what do you mean? He was below average. Look at this. He was below average. Look at this. A lot of penalties. Look at this. And what I've said was, first off, the amount of defensive fronts that he played against last year as a rookie that were elite was a lot. Number one. Number two, Kyler Murray wasn't the quarterback for the large portion of the season. And number three, he's a rookie playing a new position. So while those may sound like excuses, they're not. They're reasons. A lot of times reasons and excuses gets fused together into one term, and it's just wrong. Paris Johnson Jr., in a nutshell, if he emerges as a left tackle, set and forget, this team knows no bounds on offense. If he struggles or falters, they've got a contingency plan in Jonah Williams. And while it's not ideal, and while you wouldn't expect Paris Johnson Jr. to regress in his natural position, and listen, offensive lineman, Kyler Murray makes it pretty easy on offensive linemen compared to just a stand-up Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford quarterback. But they've got a contingency plan if it doesn't work. The X factor-ness of Paris Johnson Jr. can unlock whatever ceiling there was on this offense in 2024 and beyond. And that, for that reason, he is the number one X factor for this entire team come 2024 specifically, because you're relying on the offense to absolutely punish and thrive to maintain, being competitive with the defense that's a year away. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. We're going to talk about another offensive player, this time Trey Benson. Why is he an X factor when he's a backup running back in 2024? You're going to have to wait and see. Baby, next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports. Well, we've got something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket for YouTube and YouTube TV. $5, you get a 3-week peek at what NFL Sunday Ticket in all its glory is all about. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So you have that out there. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. So listen, there's plenty of quote-unquote X factors for this team in 2024, obviously. An X factor is a player that if that leap is taken, everything levels up. And you could say that about, Max Melton or Sean Murphy-Bunting or Darren Hall if he makes the team or, whoever it is. But those guys aren't in a position with help around them to be able to, take that next step. And with the other two guys, it's like, okay, well, or the other three guys, like they've got help around them, okay? And they're also able to, like, they're more talented. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here, but like, okay, listen. If Max Melton pops, the defense is still going to struggle, okay? But if Paris Johnson Jr. takes that step, the offense will have their left tackle, and you can set and forget and move and look at other directions. I mean, you'll have the right side of the offensive line, which is going to be strong. You just got to focus on the left guard position. That was a little clunky. Apologies for me. But listen, I told you, I don't edit these. I know how to edit audio and video. I've done it for quite some time. But I'd rather work things through with you. Like I just had that little brain melt right there. So Trey Benson, listen, why would a backup running back be an X factor? How long do you have? In this situation with the Cardinals and their offense in 2024, Drew Petzing's offense, if the Cardinals have a 1-2 punch running the ball, they're going to win some games. Well, obviously, on the offense, like if they run the ball, they wouldn't get. Yeah, Clancy, what are you talking about? Listen, if they can run the ball 30 times a game efficiently and effectively, we're going to be speaking about the Cardinals making a playoff push to make the playoffs. Because look at this chain reaction. Say the Cardinals average, I don't know, and I'm just saying this with Trey Benson, because this would have to be with Trey Benson. It's not going to be just James Conner. If the Cardinals average 140 yards rushing during the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, and they go 2-1, for the rest of the year, opposing defenses, defensive coordinators, and all the like are going to have to choose to stack the box and let Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, and Greg Dortch go one-on-ones with Kyler Murray, or they have light, or they will bracket coverage either Trey McBride or Marvin Harrison Jr., and they'll have light boxes, and James Conner and Trey Benson can run rough shot. Like, if Trey Benson can set the tone early on, this offense will know no bounds, because it's going to have to keep opposing teams so honest and so meticulous with their defensive schemes and their choice on how to approach the Arizona Cardinals from the defensive side of the ball. So the reason why Trey Benson's so interesting is he could have an incredibly massive impact on this offense pretty much right away. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of touches he gets early on, if it's just going to be James Conner, and then he'll just be there to spell Conner if he gets hurt, or, whatever. I mean, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there's going to be a role for him, and I think that he solidified himself as RB2. We'll see where Amari DeMarcado and Michael Carter fit in. A lot of mouths to feed. It'll be interesting to see what they do roster construction-wise. And assuming DJ Dallas is just going to be special teams. But if Trey Benson can be a guy who averages 4 yards a carry, there's always one rookie that kind of surprises from the running back room. And I mean, a lot of people had him as the best running back out of this class. Like there's the kid in Miami, and then there's a couple others that Blake Corum was obviously a hot name because Michigan won it all. But if Trey Benson can take that step right away, this offense, how are you going to stop this offense? We have to keep in mind when we're talking about this. This is something that I'm going to remind you a lot during the season. And obviously we're going to have more context on the defense and their shortcomings, and maybe if they're a little bit better than people expected, and if the preparation that Nick Morales and Jonathan Gannon instill in those guys like they did last year, maybe it'll be able to kind of circumvent the lack of Pro Bowl talent that's on that side of the ball. Like, the Cardinals' best defense in 2024 is going to be their offense. That's what it's going to be. They're going to have to run the ball effectively. They're going to have to churn clock. And this isn't going to be like where they're running 30% less plays than every other team in the NFL. If they can eat clock, and obviously it's going to change. Like, there's going to be sped up offensive series and things like that. But like, if it's going to be slow and steady, methodical, like it was last year for Drew Petzing's offense, that means if it's effective, that Trey Benson's going to be an integral part of it. And if he's an integral part of it in a positive way, not only will it allow the Cardinals offense to be on the field longer, it'll allow and alleviate some of the stress. It'll alleviate some of the stress from the defensive side of the ball. Like, I almost did Trey Benson as the number one X factor out of these three, but I think if you don't protect Kyler Murray, none of this is going to work. That was the credo. That's what it's been from me with Locked On Cardinals pretty much since I started with this. So if Trey Benson can be that Robin to the James Conner Batman and really be a 1-2 punch that not only will allow the Cardinals to stay on the field longer, it'll keep defenses honest, and like as a byproduct, not necessarily directly like a brainchild of James Conner and Trey Benson taking the lead here, Kyler Murray's not going to have to run the ball as much, which is a win. So as you start to see all of the things that can sprout from Trey Benson being good in 2024, that's all you need to hear about why he's one of the biggest X factors for the Cardinals if they want to take that leap faster than people expect them to. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. I almost did this dude first. These guys are all tied for first pretty much, with Paris Johnson Jr. taking the lead by a hair. Rabbit, Dadrion Taylor-Demerson, X factor written all over him. Discuss it next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time's got a new feature called Game Time Picks, okay? It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. On top of all of that, there are a bunch of different app features that can get you super excited about the Game Time app, even more than you already are. Lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price. Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. And finally, view from your seats. It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets for concerts or baseball games or football when it comes around, or whatever it is. You can see the view from the seat before you buy it, so you know exactly what your vantage point will be. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. Yep, guaranteed. I just have this random rogue Southern accent that comes out once in a blue moon. I don't mean to do it. I don't mean to do it. If you spew as many words as I do, it's, weird stuff's, I guess, bound to, come out of my mouth, I guess, with accents is in this episode. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Get daily insight to the best fantasy draft strategies so you can win your league this season. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Paris Johnson Jr. goes without saying. If you've got a franchise left tackle, it's going to make your quarterback's job easier. It's going to make the offense's job easier, and everything snowballs from that. That's why he's the number one biggest X factor for 2024 for the Cardinals. Trey Benson, close second. If Trey Benson can be the Batman to the James Conner Robin, that means that this team will truly be a run-first offense like everybody, including myself, expects it to be if you know anything about this team. That's not to say that Marvin Harrison Jr. is not going to have 100 catches this year. That Trey McBride's not going to have 100 catches this year. If you can run the ball, everything's possible. Just like when big men used to be a thing in the NBA, inside-out offense, that's how open three-pointers used to be created. Now every three-pointer is an open three-pointer because people are pulling up and jacking it from half court. Run the ball first, everything else opens up. If Trey Benson is able to do that while James Conner is healthy, not just if James Conner were to miss time, if you have that 1-2 punch, everything changes. Kyler Murray doesn't have to run the ball as much to keep going, even though he'll have design runs and, the gray area plays, like I call them. He will take advantage of his speed, with his legs. But if you don't have to use Kyler Murray to run the ball to keep the offense matriculating the ball down the field, Trey Benson will be an integral part of that if that's something that they're able to achieve. That's why. Massive X factor for Trey Benson in his first year in the NFL. Another rookie, Dadrion Taylor-Demerson. He's popped more than any other defensive player the Cardinals have put out there. Darius Robinson only played 11 plays. He got behind the line of scrimmage. Xavier Thomas has had a couple sacks, who's been a very, very nice, dart throw, late rounds guy who was injured in college for a couple years at Clemson. He's shown flashes, and he just doesn't make the X factor role because the pass rush is going to be so difficult to overcome this hurdle with the lack of talent that they have. Even if he emerges as a 7 or 8 sack guy, it may not move the needle enough for him to be a bona fide X factor. Obviously, all these things are subject to change as we actually see regular season NFL games being played. But what we've seen from Dadrion Taylor-Demerson, he had an interception last week. He tiptoed the sideline. The dude looks like the next Budda Baker. He looks like the next Tyrann Mathieu. And while their skill sets aren't exactly the same, their body makeups aren't exactly the same, he just looks like a dude. And every single guest spot, whether it be on radio or podcast, asking me about the Cardinals defense this year, whenever I bring up Dadrion Taylor-Demerson, it's happened 7, 8, 9 times at this point, and we're still early on, over the last few weeks. Every host will be like, yep, had my eye on him for the team, whatever city they're in. The dude was coveted coming out of Texas Tech. And it seems like if he's able to take that step, even though he's not going to be starting the year, if he's an impact player, they're going to find time on the field and snaps for him. It's not going to be supplanting Budda Baker yet. It's not going to be, it's not going to be supplanting Jalen Thompson yet. And I don't even know if there is a yet for that. If he can take that rookie, if the game is never too fast for him and he's ready to rock right away, this defense, even though their secondary from the cornerback position is going to be weak, it seems, or weaker than most of the other positions outside of pass rush on the defense, he may be able to compensate, just like Budda Baker's done for so many years. In Budda Baker's career, he's never played on an NFL team with a bona fide CB1 and CB2. Patrick Peterson never had a guy. Byron Murphy was never a CB1. Look at the depth chart since Budda Baker was drafted. Not good. And he was able to compensate. And that's why he's been so valuable and why his specific numbers don't translate to how immensely important he's been to this organization. So if Dadrion Taylor-Demerson can follow in those footsteps and compensate for the lack of talent that the Cardinals have on defense this year in the cornerback position, this team is going to be better than what their roster would indicate. And just bringing all of this to like a landing, the differentiation between Paris Johnson Jr., Trey McBride, and Dadrion Taylor-Demerson. I could have done a show on Michael Wilson, Darius Robinson, Xavier Thomas. Those were names that I floated out there too when I was writing down notes and trying to figure out how to formulate this show. The Cardinals have a lot of X factors that could potentially, like, if they take a step and they surprise people, that this team could be better. Like, that's kind of obvious. Guys you don't expect to play well. Oh, the Cardinals are better. Yeah, I get it. But with these three guys specifically, these are cornerstone positions that either has a vacancy, like left tackle with DJ Humphries gone, or for all of those who think Budda Baker and James Conner should be gone after this year, there are your heir apparents. While I discussed earlier this week, I think it was yesterday, I discussed earlier this week that especially if Trey Benson and Dadrion Taylor-Demerson go off this year, that's even more reason to bring back Budda Baker and James Conner. Even more reason. Why not keep a deeper strength? Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis are absolute wizards when it comes to finding talented players and putting them on the field. May not be a traditional base set, but I'll tell you what, if Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker, and Dadrion Taylor-Demerson are all playing at a high level this year, they're going to be on the field at the same time. Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis will figure it out. If Trey Benson is balling out of his mind, Drew Petzing is going to figure out a way to get James Conner and Trey Benson on the field at the same time. Paris Johnson Jr. is the one that may have, it's not pressure, but he doesn't have, even though Jonah Williams is a contingency plan, it's the weakest contingency plan of the three. Trey Benson, James Conner, Dadrion Taylor-Demerson, the two safeties that have been the anchor of the defense for years. Paris Johnson Jr. is on more of an island. And Paris Johnson Jr. is probably the most talented of the three at their given position. Especially if we're going to grade it on a curve where left tackle's, the second or third most important position on an NFL team, pass rusher, quarterback, pass rusher, left tackle. The stakes are higher. And if he can emerge as that guy this year, that unlocks everything else on offense. That makes Trey Benson's job easier. That makes Dadrion Taylor-Demerson's job easier because the offense is running at such a high level that maybe they only have to hold opposing defenses to 24 points if the Cardinals are putting up a 30-burger a game. These three players are the future of the organization. And the future begins week 1 in Orchard Park. Alex Lancey, Locked On Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.